Hey guys, welcome back. We have an amazing video today because we're talking about one of my most favorite loaded topics, which is how dating has changed for me since I became an Orthodox Jew. So, wow, I really don't even know where to start, but let's just dive in. I remember, I wasn't always religious, as you know, if you've been watching me on this channel for a while. I used to date in the regular standard way of secular dating. So, like going to social events, meeting guys, dating, like friends through mutual friends, this and that. I remember when I was dating someone, I was becoming more religious. They were really inspiring me. And I was asking them about like previous relationships, and they were talking about having a matchmaker. And I remember thinking, that is the weirdest thing ever. Like, you're telling me that you work with someone who's like kind of hired to get you dates? That is like embarrassing. Like, thinking in my head, like, I'm just thinking like such judgmental thoughts. That's like humiliating. That's so weird. Like, what kind of person like needs a matchmaker? And like, totally no disrespect if this is you, because this is me right now. I just was ignorant, right? I didn't know. So I had all these judgments, and I was shocked when I learned that he had been dating like that for such a long time. And I was so shocked. I remember being like floored when I learned that in Orthodox dating, people had to come up with resumes. What's a resume? So a resume is what we use to basically lay out all the basic information that you might need to know about a potential match. So their name, where they're from, their age, maybe if you're lucky, their birthday, so you can get their sign. But and like where they went to school, where they studied, where they went to yeshiva, if they studied at a yeshiva, their career, their siblings, which I always found super relevant. Like, what do I care what their siblings are doing in life, and like if they have siblings, and also like their siblings' occupations sometimes. And I'm like, what could be less relevant to me than caring about my future husband's like sister's job? I don't care. So, but that's on there. Hopefully you get a picture on there as well. I personally have never dated anyone without seeing a picture, but I know in even more religious circles than mine, it is more common to have a resume without a picture. And then usually people include, in my circles at least, some sort of bio that tells a bit about them, a bit about the person, like their main character traits, their priorities, who they are, and then another paragraph. Hopefully, if you're lucky, you get resumes that are this detailed with what they're looking for. So, for example, your character traits on your resume could be like, let's say, for example, Sarah. Sarah is a generous, giving, warm-hearted, kind, and gentle girl who values Torah learning and is looking forward to starting a Jewish home one day, right? And then it'll say like she enjoys swimming, reading, cooking, and it's basically like similar to what you would put on a dating profile, but not really, because it's way more in depth. It's not like trying to be funny at all. Like, I remember being on the dating apps when like years and years ago, and it would be like, who can come up with a catchy line for a picture, for a caption under their picture? Like, this is not that. This is more like, how can you convey yourself accurately and convey what you're looking for as accurately as possible without giving away too much of yourself? And I think that's also similar to dating apps though. And while calling in the right kind of guy for you, because it can be really difficult when you're dealing with matchmakers, when they ask you like, what are you looking for? And you just don't know, because they actually use what you're looking for in Orthodox dating to determine the type of guys that they're going to suggest to you. So it's way more important, right? In secular dating, you could just say, oh, I want someone tall, who's good looking, or like whatever, nice. But in Jewish dating, everyone's like, not like everyone's nice, but for the most part, we have a lot of things in common because we're already religious Jews. We're maybe local to one another. So they have to use specific character traits and like more of the details of how you practice religion in your life. Are you modern Orthodox? Are you modern yeshivish? Are you yeshivish? Do you want to learn Torah full time? And do you want a husband who learns Torah full time and doesn't have a job? Or do you want a husband who has a job and learns Torah at night? Are you not particular? Do you need a man who davens 3 times a day, who prays 3 times a day with a minyan, or which means with 10 other men in synagogue? Or are you less particular about that? Are you more particular about him making a good salary and being able to provide for the family? What are your priorities, and how can you list that on your resume as accurately as possible so that these matchmakers can really guide you. I remember when I first saw the resume from a guy I was dating years ago when I was becoming religious, I was like, oh, that is so inorganic. That is so weird. Like, how can you judge a book based off only its cover, right? I mean, that, just logically speaking, how can I choose my husband from a piece of paper? But what I failed to realize is that Hashem runs the world, and he already chose who we're going to marry long before we did. And so we only have to do a required, like the necessary amount of hishtadlut, which means effort, to find that person. And that means going about things in a standard way, making a resume, writing what you want, writing about yourself accurately, and then sending it to a matchmaker is normal effort. And the rest you have to leave up to God. The rest you have to trust in God that he knows your match and he's going to send you the right person. And it may seem inorganic, but that is how things are done, and it does work. So I want to talk a little bit now about the pros and cons of dating this way, with a resume, with matchmakers, in what's called shidduchim. Because wow, there are pros, but there are cons. Let's talk about it. So I think when I said before that it was inorganic, that definitely can be a con, because a lot of times you get a resume, you get the piece of paper of the guy, and yeah, it looks like he says he's creative. He says he's looking for a girl who's fun, who's kind, whatever, and you may think it looks perfect on paper. So you meet the guy, and of course it falls short. Like, of course, energy is everything and chemistry is everything, and Judaism knows that and makes space for that. But to date as effectively and as efficiently as possible with this sort of resume, you do obviously run the risk, and time again, it does happen. I mean, there are people who are in shidduchim, in Jewish Orthodox dating, for years and years and years, and please God, they should all immediately find their right person and get married at the best possible time to the best possible person for them, please God. But you can get stuck with someone who you would never have picked out based off of a conversation with them, only because things looked good on paper. And that is very tricky, and that's a definite con, right? Because you're judging off only a piece of paper and a picture. You're bound. I mean, but it's the same with dating apps, right? Like, you can meet someone on a dating app and they can look so compatible, and you meet in person and there's no chemistry, there's no energy there. So, okay, like, that's kind of unavoidable, and that's just a natural fact of dating, I guess. But one pro, I think a huge pro about shidduch dating, is how efficient it is, and how effective it is. Meaning, things move quick. If you don't like the guy, and if the guy doesn't like you, it's not like you're wasting months and months and months with the person without any hope of ever talking about marriage or ever getting married. If you are dealing with a shadchan, with a matchmaker, and you have the resume, you're called the references. I forgot to mention, there's references, which is, that's a little crazy. There's references on the resume that you can call and ask questions about to the person's rabbi, to the person's friends, to the people who know them well, and ask them questions you couldn't really ask them in person yourself. So like, what do his friends say about him? Find out more about his character, maybe some of his flaws, the type of girl he would be successful with. And you can judge based off of their responses. So that's a really important part of the resume too, is the references, because in Orthodox dating circles, people definitely do call the references. It's not like, oh, nobody actually calls them. It's like, imagine you were on Hinge, a dating app, and you had all these references of like who actually knows the girl or the guy, and people were really calling them and like asking questions. That's how it is. So I remember I was shocked about that too. And I would always feel so scared. What if they call my references and they say the wrong thing? And that happened. Like, that literally happened. But it's all min hashamayim, as we say. It's all from God at the end of the day. And Jewish dating just forces out of you such a higher trust and such a greater degree of like, wow, God runs the world due to the nature of dating. But let's get back to the pros and cons, because I got a little sidetracked there. Okay. So the pro being that it's efficient and effective. Things move quick. You are not wasting time. The higher chance than not is, if they're in Jewish dating, that they are ready for marriage. Of course, there's always exceptions. There are bad people in Jewish dating. There are time wasters in Orthodox dating, of course. But for the most part, if someone's going to go through the effort to make a resume, they're going to go through the effort to, reach out to the matchmakers, they're going to pick you up and take you for the date. Like, it requires a lot of effort. And one thing that's huge, which I didn't mention, is that Shomer Negia is a priority. Shomer Negia meaning refraining from touch throughout the dating process and the engagement process. So we don't touch each other at all. No holding hands, no hugging, no nothing at all. You can't even be alone with the person in a room alone in private, meaning your dates have to be in what's not considered yichud, which is basically seclusion. So basically you have to date in public spaces or in spaces where you're not like isolated from everyone else, because then you run the risk of then you have a better chance of not breaking Shomer Negia, which is refraining from touch. We'll touch on that more later. But that is a reason, because the guys and the girls know that they're not going to be touching each other just for funsies, because it's professional. It's almost like professional dating, like with a matchmaker, with the resume. That's a reason that it's efficient and effective. People are not wasting your time as much. For the most part, you know that the guys are serious about marriage. I remember when I was in secular dating, like years and years ago, I would just think, what is going to make these like guys settle down? They can literally why would they buy the cow if they can get the milk for free? You know what I mean? Like, why would these guys even want to settle down with one person if they literally can get any girl just going to the bar and taking them home? Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. So that's a huge pro. I think the fact that people are taking marriage so seriously and not wasting time, that's a big, big pro. Let's move on to the cons. I would say one of the main it's both a pro and a con, is, like I said, Shomer Negia, because you're not going to be touching each other during the dating process. The con is that obviously it's insanely hard to refrain from touching someone for months and months and months and months while you're dating and getting ready for marriage and forming such a close attachment to a person that you hopefully have sexual chemistry with, because Judaism does not say that you're called to not be attracted sexually to your partner. God forbid, just the opposite. There's actually a Jewish law, that a man has to be attracted to his wife, has to be sexually attracted to his wife. Judaism places a high value on sex and physicality and touch and intimacy between only husband and wife. It's extremely reserved for that exclusivity of marriage, and it's just not meant to be taken lightly, which also, as hard as it is in dating, is a pro, I think, because I remember when I would be physical with guys in any level before like too soon, or really at all, you, first of all, as a woman, leave yourself open to so much vulnerability, right? You are not, I don't believe that women thrive when they're just giving their bodies away to guys right and left in any capacity, even just kissing, just hugging, whatever. I really do feel like when you are intimate, touch is such a powerful connector for us. And when you touch someone who's not your husband, then you leave yourself, first of all, you're probably going to form a closer connection with them based on your emotions before your intellect. So you really can't control feeling close to someone and feeling like they are my person, they are my husband, if you've already been intimate with them. I know some people, right, there's always exceptions. Please do not sound off in the comments that, oh, I can do anything with anyone and I won't even care. Like, I don't get attached. I'm that girl. I know there's exceptions. That's fine. I'm speaking right now about generalities for the sake of this video to convey a point. So yes, I think that touch does inhibit a closer connection to people that we might not choose to be closely connected to at that time. There have been times in the past when, like, I felt like I needed something from the guy just because we kissed or something, like, you know what I'm saying? And when in reality, intellectually, is that my person? Does this match make sense? Does that guy, would he make a good father of my kids? Would he make a good husband? Do we align in our values, like on the deeper things that matter? Only then, if we do and we can get married, does touch come into the picture, but not before. Because it makes people make bad choices, frankly. How many people do we know girls who, God forbid, have one night stands and then they're left brokenhearted when the guy doesn't want them back. Judaism protects our hearts as women and as men from those toxic situations, which can be so painful and can lead to such low self-esteem and low feelings of self-worth for women, because that's simply not how we were designed, I believe. And so that is a huge pro, that Shomer Nagia in dating would prevent frivolity. Frivolity, is that a word? Frivolousness with touch, meaning that the connections that you do form are based off what matters. They're based off your emotions. They're based off intellectual bonding. They're based off mutual respect, care, and love for one another. Not love, because we don't really believe that you're in love until you're married, actually, because we think love, actually, in Judaism, ahava, comes from the root word to give. So we think you love people who you give to. And so by that definition, love really starts when giving starts, which starts in the sanctity of marriage. So based off of that, I think that it's a blessing that we don't touch in dating, because we're allowed to think clearly. It actually gives us more freedom. Judaism, people think, is always so many laws that inhibit our freedom. It's just the opposite. Because we're not free to do everything, we have freedom to think, freedom to choose, freedom to use our God-given brains to make the correct decisions, rather than just falling victim to the sway of our emotions, right? So that is a huge blessing. One con I'll say is that I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure on all singles, really, in the Orthodox Jewish circles, because marriage is placed in such a high regard, and we really place a huge emphasis on the importance of establishing a Jewish home to continue Jewish lineage, Jewish families, Jewish traditions, Jewish religion. Chinuch, which means educating your children, is a huge mitzvah. There's many mitzvot which are only able to be done within a marriage and a home, such as keeping family purity laws, covering hair, going to the mikvah, which is family purity laws, chinuch, educating the children. There's so many beautiful, beautiful mitzvot that you can only do when you're married, that I do think that a lot of people feel left out when they're single. And that's really sad, because if we're going to say that everything's on God's time, and that God chooses our match, and God chooses the exact second that we get married and stand under the marriage canopy, then we also have to choose to say that he is the one choosing that we are single, and feel empowered and feel besimcha, feel happy and joyful, that's where we're at right now in life, and not feel like there's something wrong with us, or we're defected, or we're rejected, or we're not good enough to get married. I think that in the modern world, like secular date, not the modern world, but in the secular world, we have kind of the opposite approach, where it's like, I'm going to be a boss babe CEO. I don't need to get married, this and that. But obviously, taken to too far extremes, we can see the divorce rate is so high. Marital families are falling apart, right? We lost the sanctity of marriage. There's adultery, there's cheating going on, this and that, all the time. But on the other hand, you know, for all the emphasis and beauty and importance and significance that Judaism places on getting married, the drawback is that you can easily feel left out. You can easily feel defected. You can easily feel like there's something wrong with you if you're not married, and you're just waiting to kind of check that box, to get that goal, to get to that next chapter, that next step, and like get to the finish line. So I remember when I was in seminary, when I was learning about becoming more religious and living a Torah lifestyle, one thing that they always taught us was that marriage is not a goal. Marriage is not, it can be an ideal, it can be something to strive for, of course, but it's not something you just race to the finish line to check off, because once you're married, then the new problems begin. You don't have a happily ever after. Judaism acknowledges that once you're married, then the work starts. So I know this was a tremendous amount of information today. Please, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Sound off in the comments below. If you like these type of videos, make sure you hit this video with a like and subscribe to this channel so I know that you like it. It helps more people find the channel. And if you're interested in learning more about me, I'm going to link more where you can follow me and connect with me in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching and have an amazing, amazing day.